Good morning and welcome back. This is the Morning Drift. Nancy and Nelima here, and time now for us to have a morning conversation. And did you know that the world prevalence of obesity has nearly tripled between 1975 and 2022? Quite alarming. And in light of that, we are talking about obesity, and more specifically, childhood obesity, because that in essence then leads to obesity in adulthood. And with me on set is Fatma Mohammed, founder Wellness KE.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I think it's kind of ironic, let me just say that a few weeks ago I was on a different radio station actually talking about the food shortage crisis. So that tells you there are some people who are actually struggling with food shortage and then there are people who are struggling with trying to make sure that they don't eat too much food. Right. But then we'll get into that in a bit.
And you look amazing. So
thank you,
we will be talking about how to achieve this.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, and let's start from the culture that we have, because children, they're born in a society, and of course they tap into whatever happens around them, how they will be socialized. So let's talk generally about Kenyans and our relationship with food.
This is a tricky one, but then we have to get it out there. Let's start off by saying most of the times in the African culture, we have been taught that when someone actually is plump or a little bit heavier, that means that they are, wealthy, they're doing well. And we actually have not really figured out scientifically what this really means. For instance, if you are of a certain height and a certain weight, there's something important for us to consider, which is known as body mass index, or BMI. And your BMI basically tells you whether you are underweight, good weight or healthy weight, or overweight or obese, right? So you'll find that because of our culture, we actually associate gaining weight with, positive way of living, which is actually the opposite. It means we haven't necessarily figured out a person, an individual, and then for us to figure out their BMI, if they really are at a healthy weight or not. And also, even as kids, we were actually told to finish the food that's on our plate, right? But it's interesting when you think of it, because whenever we eat food, there are certain hormones that are actually involved. Like the hormone ghrelin is supposed to be a hormone that signals you that you're hungry, right? And then there's a hormone known as leptin that's supposed to signal that you're full. And you find that children already have these hormones that are functioning properly, and they tell a child that they are hungry so they can eat, and it also signals and tells them that they're full. But then if they've been given a whole plate of food and you keep insisting that they have to finish, then that means at some point they're actually going to develop something known as leptin resistance, where this means that their own body resists the leptin hormone. So even when they're full, they're still going to keep on stuffing themselves with the food. And this is a habit that's very hard to kick. So culturally, we've actually set our children up to fail in that way, meaning even as they become adults and they're living their own lives, it's very hard for them to kick those habits. Yeah, and also even our parents, actually just a way for them to show us love. They might cook you your favorite meal. And so we associate actually eating and food with love and this good affection, this kind of affection. But then when you think about it, even as you get older, that means if you're feeling sad, you'll need some comfort food, something that'll make you feel nice. But then food shouldn't actually be about that emotion. It should actually nourish you, and that's it. So culturally, we have set ourselves up a little bit for failure in that way.
I know of my friends who went for Rorashu in the Western region. And then they were served with food. First, even before the food comes, then the appetizer, and the version of the appetizer
is like a whole meal.
So there are ground nuts, there's a boiled maize, so all that food. Then they thought that was food, so they actually just dived in and started eating. Then after some time, then there's food coming. And they're told this whole ugali, they thought that this is for everyone, but no, that's for you two guys over there.
For you to eat and finish.
So even the portions. So then this means that in our culture as well, part of being hospitable is serving a lot of food?
Again, it's
how can we change that?
It's because you're trying to show someone that you love them and you want them to feel welcome and comfortable, and you're giving them your food. But what you have to understand is that we need to think about what food really does to the body. Food's goal is to nourish you. It's not just to stuff you and make you full. It's supposed to nourish your body so that whenever you eat, the food is broken down. It will be broken down into sugars. It goes into cells. It is stored there so that it can perform different functions. So you eat the amount that actually suits you, as opposed to, of course, eating all that food. And also, what kind of food? Because it's not just about the quantity, it's also about the quality.
Right.
So when you look at the plate, if it's leaning more towards heavier or carbohydrates with very little vegetables, very little leafy greens and protein and healthy fats, then that means you don't have a balanced plate. And whenever you eat actually a balanced diet, you'll find that you're not necessarily going to eat a lot of food. So in that particular scenario, if they would have served them with some of the groundnuts, some avocado, maybe that's healthy fat, just a little bit, and then a portion of meat. Of course, if it's Western, that's my home, it's chicken, and then it's going to be some carbohydrates. Maybe it's going to be cassava or sweet potato or ugali. Fine, but then in portions. And also when we talk about portions, it's important for people to understand every time you eat, make sure that half of your plate actually has leafy greens and vegetables. This is because this is going to provide you with a lot of fiber, and fiber acts as a broom, so it sweeps away toxins and anything else that it means you will get regular bowel movement due to the fiber. This is actually going to be very important if you're trying to lose weight. And also a palm size of protein. So when you look at your palm, the size of your palm, you can have that portion of protein, whether it'll be fish, it'll be meat, it'll be eggs, whatever. Then you'll have a fist size of carbohydrates. So it's less carbohydrates. But of course, when you think about our culture, we have more of the ugali,
than the
of protein, and then very little mboga. So we need to actually reverse that in order for us to now deal with certain issues, especially these lifestyle complications like obesity.
Okay. And now when it comes to children, should the portions then be the same like how we're measuring for adults? You said like this should be the carb.
Yeah.
So maybe the vegetables could be this size.
Exactly.
For kids, is the measurement, is the portion the same?
For children, what you actually need to do is to listen to them when they tell you that they're hungry and when they're full. Because as we've actually explained earlier, that the hormones like leptin and ghrelin, they actually play a very big function. They signal, they tell you when you're hungry, and they tell you when you're full. So make sure that you listen to your child. You as a parent, you know your child better than anyone else. You know when they're really full and you know when they're hungry. And at the same time, when you look at the plate of your the child that you prepared for them, make sure that you have the right types of foods that we've mentioned. Because when you have the right types, chances are they're actually going to be full and leave, some room for, of course, drinks and drinking water, hydrating, and so forth. So make sure that you focus more on the quality of food, the types of food. That way, your child is actually not going to steer down that path of overeating and things like that. Yeah.
And then there's fast food.
Yes.
Yeah, and you see, when you even see ads on TV, when someone bites a fried chicken,
yes,
and drinks a very cold Coca-Cola, then it's attractive.
Yes.
So then there are very many fast food joints as well.
Yeah.
Many families dine out during the weekends, fast food joints, and kids who consume a lot of this fast food. Yet again, how can parents just work around it and control the intake of junk?
Do you know something? It's very important for people to understand that word fast food. Of course, it's prepared fast. Chances are there's not going to be much to nourish the body. So I always say a parent who cares about their child is going to do their best to allocate time to prepare healthier foods for their child, because you're not necessarily going to sit and blame businesses out there. They're doing what they need to do. They're running businesses. They're going to put a lot of money to have ads because they know at the end of the day, if they market these products, you and probably your children are going to end up consuming them. So they have teams that actually come up with these ads and make sure that they even evoke emotion when you drink that soda or whatever, because they know that the moment they do that, you'll actually be attracted to it. But you as a parent, what you need to do is think about what that food is going to do to your child's body, because at the same time you have to focus on the life of your child. Think about the fact that now we are actually getting statistics that are proving to us that by 2030 around over 1 million children aged 5 to 19 are actually going to end up being obese, Kenyan children.
It's a dangerous trend.
Yes, and that means that, children are actually going to be more at risk of developing conditions like childhood diabetes, high blood pressure, even breathing problems. You're seeing children who are aged 10, 11 struggling with breathing problems when they sleep, or even asthma and things like that. And it's because of obviously the type of foods that they're consuming. So as parents, if you feel like, going out will actually tempt you to buy these types of foods, then find other ways to make sure that your children actually engage in activities over the weekend that are going to be fun. They can still swim, and you can still make some delicious, healthy snacks for them, such that while they're there enjoying their time, they can still indulge in the food that is healthier. But then obviously we would want for the food industry and the government to actually come to play when it comes to controlling what is put in the foods and the labeling and the adverts. But you as a parent also need to play a role. Don't just sit there and say, you guys are doing bad when you do ABCD. What are you doing about it? You can actually take control. And something that's very important, children don't have the money to buy this stuff. It's
right.
The parents
they get it from the parents. Yeah.
So as a parent, you're the one who actually takes money from your account and you pay these fast food joints to feed your children this food that's going to lead them to become sick. And we're not just saying this as propaganda, it is proven. So you have to actually do the research, and at the same time you have to care about your child.
Right. So when it comes to preventing the childhood obesity, what are the foods that should be off parents'
avoided,
mind?
right?
Avoided,
I can say that the first one obviously is junk food. We've already talked about fast food, junk food. All these foods are actually unhealthy. And there's some people who go like, well, I eat junk food and I snack on these things, but I don't gain weight. And I always tell them, the truth is, when you eat these foods, they actually go and deplete important vitamins and minerals in your body. So whatever you had, these foods are actually doing like an erosion and getting rid of them. So you find that you're malnourished, even though you're not gaining the weight, but you're not healthy. Okay, so we actually have to start thinking in terms of what is this food actually going to do to my body as I consume it. And also we need to avoid the biggest culprit, which is sugar. Refined sugar is a big culprit, and it's for a reason, because the thing is, every time you eat food, right, it's broken down and it's supposed to be turned into sugar, and it's stored in cells so that it can perform functions. The problem is, so at this point when it's broken down and it's stored in cells, your pancreas releases insulin, and the insulin is supposed to ensure that the stored sugar actually performs its function, and also you don't end up having too much sugar in your bloodstream, because this would lead to insulin resistance, to diabetes, to obesity, and many other complications. But now you think of it in this way, like if you keep eating all the time and you keep eating these foods high in sugar, actually you're going to end up having high levels of blood sugar and also a lot of insulin being released in your body. And insulin is a fat storage hormone. It's a hormone that actually encourages the storage of fat. So some people think they need to get rid of just fatty foods, but you also need to get rid of foods that are high in sugar, because they're the ones that keep spiking your insulin. And so children who keep eating these snacks that are loaded with sugar, especially these concentrated sugar type of drinks, the juices that are labeled as healthy and in bottles, and you see children carrying them when they go to school, they're actually drinking a lot of their calories and their sugars, and unfortunately it puts them in a state known as insulin resistance. Basically, their own bodies are resisting the insulin that is being released by the pancreas. This actually puts children at risk of so many complications, including even heart-related complications. So parents need to be very careful.
Okay, and there are products that they say they don't have sugar, but they have sweeteners.
Yeah.
So then, some people say it's tricky just to trust a product that has a sweetener.
Which is so interesting, you know, when you think about these sweeteners, this is actually something that the food industry needs to actually come forward and be very transparent about, because there are countries, especially in Europe, that are very clear about this. They've actually forced the government to force the food industry to be very transparent when it comes to the amount of sugar that is put in the food. They've even insisted on front label packaging, whereby you actually indicate at the front of the packet of snacks what actually the packet contains, because sometimes at the back you might not really read it. So sweeteners are actually also chemicals. They're additives. They're actually put there so that they can create certain sensory reactions in your brain and keep you addicted. And unfortunately, people have not really understood that some of these food industry or companies actually invest in scientists who work in the lab to make sure that they produce, you know, certain chemicals that are going to trigger your brain and give you feelings of happiness as you eat certain foods. But then it's not necessarily nourishing you. So when you think about sweeteners, you actually have to think of natural sweeteners as opposed to, you know, the ones you find out there.
The processed ones.
Yes, the processed. So your, of course, raw organic honey, dates, which is dried fruits, raisins, fruit also is, you know, it's called nature's candy for a reason. So you can actually use it in smoothies and things like that. So parents actually need to be very vigilant and also remember some of the ways that they can be able to add these into, you know, their children's snacks or anything that they've prepared for them. Yeah.
Right. And also, as we talk about the food that we eat, then sugar seems to be the most dangerous, as it is, and even in supermarkets and in shops, but majorly in supermarkets, that a lot of the sugary products are put at the eye level of children. So what do you think retailers, supermarkets can do just to make sure that we are a healthier society?
You know, this is something that is quite shocking, because I've watched actually a video on YouTube that was, it was a company, a fast food company, that was trying to boost their sales. So they market to children. And what they did was they actually carried out this short little experiment. So they had like a simulated supermarket. So it's not a real one, but they just simulated like a supermarket. And then they would actually ask regular parents to go in with their kids and shop. And they would put items plus their foods there, so that they actually wanted to check eye level, like which one would they pick first and put on there. And so this was actually an experiment they carried out so that they would know when they go and place their foods in certain strategic places, they know exactly where they place it, because they've carried out a survey, they know how they understand human behavior. So when you think about it in that way, think about the kind of beast you're dealing with. You're dealing with people who are actually putting in a lot of money to make sure that these foods are strategically placed. And again, it still goes back to the parents. Even if the food is actually placed right in front of you, the good thing is the information is there. If you research and have the right information and know exactly what is going to benefit your child, you actually are going to, even if the food is right here in front of you, you're going to reach for that which is healthier all the way at the back. Because when you know something, you're more empowered and you know what suits you and what suits your family. So you have to actually play that role, because even as supermarkets also, you know, they can also try, obviously, to make sure that there are healthier options. Or even malls. Think about malls. When kids actually go with their parents over the weekend, you don't see many fun, entertaining, healthy joints, right? It's mostly the fast food and and the snacks and the whatever. But unfortunately, because of that, children have actually, you know, created some kind of emotion towards these things that are actually marketed to them. So as a parent, make sure that you're also very, very strict on it. Make sure that you let your children know. Don't just tell them that you have to eat this. Explain to them that when you don't eat this, this is what's going to happen to you. This is what it might lead to. And find good examples, of course, in society that can be able to assist them.
Right. And I know we have a couple of products
Yes.
right here on the table, but we have to take a short break.
Yeah.
But we'll be coming back to talk about this,
Yes.
as well as physical activity,
Yes,
which is
that's
just
very
as
important.
essential.
Yes.
Right. We do have to take a very short break here on the Morning Drift, but we'll be back with a conversation addressing childhood obesity. Don't go too far.